Anybody who knows me well enough knows that I love Dragon Ball Z, and furthermore, I absolutely love Vegeta. He may be one of the best characters written in Dragon Ball Z. He has some of the most depth of any of the main characters. Today's figure is the SDBH Super Dragon Ball Heroes 9th Anniversary figure of Super Saiyan 4 Vegeta. Super Dragon Ball Heroes is actually a game, and in Japan it's so big that it even has an arcade cabinet. I've never played it myself, but I've always been interested, though the battle system seems just a little too wonky for me. But it seems to have quite an amazing following, especially with the fact that this is a 9th anniversary figure. The game was introduced November of 2010, so it's a pretty darn old game. And if it's lasted that long, even as an arcade game, that is pretty impressive. But more on to the figure. Now, similar to the Gogeta that I won from Japan, this is also in one of those little cardboard coffins inside of the box, which seems to be protecting it rather well, so I do appreciate it. But when you open it up, you'll see here that there's some parts, so let's take them out. Wow, he's a lot bigger than I thought. So now that he's out of the box, we have to assemble him. He comes in a few pieces, but it's pretty easy, so let's do that now. His top half and his bottom half are the main pieces here, and you just plug one into the other. It's rather simple. And once he's plugged in, that's most of the work, but you'll see he also has this little tail that plugs into this little tiny slot right on his butt. And of course his stand plugs in right on his right butt cheek. The stand is incredibly plain, it's just a smooth black stand, and of course the arm just plugs into the top of it. But once he's plugged in, I've got to say, this figure is impressive. I really like the way this looks. One great thing about him is that since he's a statue, there's not a ton of little gaps where they could create all this break of immersion, since he doesn't really have any movable parts, and it looks good. The only places are where he plugs in at, and obviously enough, if you plug him in tight enough, you won't have that problem. And this Vegeta is pretty impressively sized. If you measure him from the desk up to the top of his hair, you'll see that he measures a little bit over 9 inches. But that's a little deceptive because he's obviously floating. If you measure him from his toe to the top of his head, he's a little over 8 inches, just under 8.5 inches, I would say, for the actual figure itself. If anything good came out of Dragon Ball GT, it has to be Super Saiyan 4 Vegeta and Goku. I have always loved these designs. And goodness, just take a look at his anatomy here in those super deep cut muscles on his legs. They look amazing. There's a lot of attention to detail to the muscles, of course, because Dragon Ball Z is known for its buff boys. I've seen other figures of Super Saiyan 4 characters, and the fur is never quite as bright as I'd like it to, but this figure is so high saturated and bright, and I love it. And despite there being all these natural creases that create natural shading, there's also some painted in details too. There's varying levels of red and maroon, which will allow for the muscles to really pop that much more. There's some amazing texturing used on his fur as well, which really makes him look like a fuzzy monkey. But it never makes his figure look cartoonish. And of course his chest is well sculpted as well, and that natural light comes in as well as some shading to really make him look fit. Even his hands look amazing. Just look at the way it's all crinkled up in the one where he's posing that while the other's extended out for an attack. And just look at the hand, seriously, deep down, this thing is really well sculpted. There's details for each break of his finger, as well as some palm detail and even some tension on his glove to create some wrinkling there. The pose is of course incredibly dynamic as well, and it really shows off his primal fury. But we can't forget his hair either, because rather than it just being amazingly sculpted, there's tons of texture in it as well. I think what has to be one of the best features of this figure is of course the face itself. This is Vegeta enraged, and he looks great. Just look at those eyes. There's even some wrinkles in his forehead, at the bridge of his nose, and even some on the sides of his face as well. This thing is just looking amazing. His teeth are sculpted, his tongue is sculpted, that maw is wide open, and he's clearly roaring out in anger at somebody. I can't help but say it again, but I love this. And of course that red lining underneath his eyes, and his eyes being that cyan color, all pop so well and look so amazing. The eyes are one of the things that really seal the deal for me with this figure. They just look fantastic. And of course Vegeta's back looks great too, even though you likely really won't be ever looking back here. But similar to the front, he's deep cut and well painted, so everything here looks great. But of course, this is where I found the only piece of QC error that really bothered me. That shoulder is not looking too clean, and it is going to be a bit of a problem for me. That shoulder is not looking very nice. I'm going to try to clean that off, but this is pretty much the only QC error on the whole figure, so I can't be that mad. let me start by saying there's very little that I dislike about this figure. The main problem that I had was that one QC error, but again, it was on its back, so I really can't be too upset about it. This figure is amazing looking. It's big, it's so well sculpted, it's painted well, it's just designed wonderfully, and ultimately, it's Vegeta. So what else can I say? I'm going to give the Dragon Ball Heroes Super Saiyan 4 Vegeta a solid 9 out of 10. It's Vegeta, he's red, he looks amazing, there's really not much else to say. Thank you so much for watching. Did you guys agree with me? Why don't you go ahead and comment below if you did, or tell me your favorite Dragon Ball Z character. If you like this video, make sure to like it and click what's on screen so you can watch that video as well. Until next time, thank you so much for watching, have an amazing weekend, and keep on collecting.